Hi everyone, it's Adam with Milo's Restoration, and today I've got a video for you about flipping this piece. It's a foyer entryway table. I kind of got started on it a little bit, but I had to change directions a few times, and it was kind of a hard piece to work on. So yeah, we'll get into that now. And the first thing I'm going to do is clean it with water and some degreaser, but obviously remove all the doors too. So I know a lot of people are probably curious, that red stuff that you see all over it. I did two pieces for this customer, and while I was working on the other piece, I decided to fill some of the holes that I saw with some Bondo glazing and just let it sit. That way it would have adequate time to dry. And yeah, that's what I did originally, and it had a lot of time to dry, and it was definitely ready to sand by the time I got to work on this piece. Also, I originally did not paint the inside of the drawers here, and I did this little trick where like I kind of double tape the sides where it's basically like it doesn't have a face frame. It's kind of like a frameless door, and they're really hard to mask. But I didn't like the way that it looked after I ripped the masking off, so I did end up just ripping the masking out and repainting it later. What's left of the plaster and the MDF. I think it's going to be fine. I don't really see any issue with painting over something like this. The plaster is pretty solid once you get past all this little stuff. So I'm not really that worried about it. And also I'm going to use a water-based primer that's not going to lift the previous coating. But I'm also going to put some filler over the top of it and let it dry, and then I'll sand it all down and prime over that. Yeah, so that was my plans for the doors. I decided to sand them down as much as I reasonably could, and then put some filler over them, and then prime them. So I let the filler on those doors dry overnight. I wanted to make sure it was really dry because it was kind of a thicker application than I really would have liked to do. And I cleaned everything else while I was waiting on it. So the little white spot that you see up there, I actually tested the primer. I wanted to make sure, since it was a water-based primer, that it was going to stick. And it did seem to stick pretty well. So I decided to kind of carry on with what I was doing. Also, those pads are some automotive Scotch Brights that I buy from they sell like body and like paint supplies. So like, they sell like Bondo, all that kind of stuff, spray guns for car refinishers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just something that I buy from there. I also buy a lot of my spray guns and filler from them too. But I like them. They're pretty good for cleaning and, degreasing. So this is a 2K primer that I'm mixing up here. It's Centurion's product. I originally intended on using the full Centurion system, but I had some issues with the color match, and I just decided to go with Sherwin Gallery as a top coat. But yeah, this is Centurion 1111, and you catalyze it by up to 5%. So I put 5% hardener in it, and I mix it in, and then I spray it. I used a 308 tip, and it looks really good. I mean, the primer levels out great. It seems to have pretty good blocking abilities. It's definitely not like as hard to sand as the first 2K primer I used from them, which was, I think, 1108 or 1107 maybe. It's really hard to sand, but yeah, this one's pretty easy to sand, and I like it. I'll probably still use it, even if I'm using solvent-based products, actually, because you can do that. You just have to wait a day for it to dry completely. So a new thing you might see here is a quick shot. Yeah, I bought the Graco quick shot, and I have to say I like it a lot. It's pretty convenient. I can definitely foresee some issues with it. The pump and the motor are really small, but I mean they're doing a lot of work. So I mean, I think that might eventually be an issue. But I think for now I like it a lot, and it's just a really easy gun to use. I like the way that the spray gun is designed. So it's not like a traditional airless where it's made to be used from farther away from the surface, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches. This one is actually made to be held above 4 inches above the surface, which to me is kind of nice because I'm used to an HVLP. And yeah, I guess just the design of the gun, it produces a lot less overspray too, which is nice, and you don't get any spits. So yeah, I like it. It's a cool gun. Now I had the wonderful task of grinding down all of that filler that I had put on there. Um, I use a lightweight polyester filler that's pretty easy to sand, but man, this is still really an annoying task, and it's really a pain. And obviously, I think if you can't tell, this is a commission piece. It's not a piece that I just picked and flipped. So, if this was me and I was flipping something, I would stay away from something like this. But because it's a client-owned piece, you just do what you got to do. And yeah, but I don't think I'd want to paint over this plaster again. It was a lot of work. So this is that red glazing that you saw earlier. Um, it's just the same stuff. It's just that I decided to put a little bit on because I had a few spots that it's almost impossible to get everything with the first round of Bondo. But while that was drying, I painted the case, and what I did was, if you can't tell, I took the masking off and I sprayed the inside. Like I said, we had a color issue. So the color is Sherwin Williams Stormcloud. And for some reason, the Centurion 2K, it was too light. It didn't look correct. It looked like it was too light. It looked like it was too kind of like, I don't know how you'd say it, kind of like airy, I guess. And so I decided to repaint it, and we repainted it with a Stormcloud that was mixed in Gallery. And obviously some people are going to say, well, you're not using a 2K product. You went from a 2K to a 1K. But honestly, this provides enough protection for this piece, and I think it's going to be fine. It's not a cabinet door. It's not something that's going to get like quite as much use. And also, the color is exact. Like, I know that the color is right. And that's just a problem that I'm going to have with 2K products, is that whenever I get them mixed, they don't mix them on a machine, they mix them by hand. And if the person who's asking for it, they know what they're looking for, they know what the color is supposed to look like exactly, like an interior designer or somebody like that, they're going to be able to see a slight difference. So that's just something you have to keep in mind. I know people are pushing 2K and 1K products hard these days, but just something to note is that um, it's a lot of people are tinting them by hand, and you're not always going to get an exact color match, and a lot of the times you can tell the difference. So by this point, I had sprayed a coat of primer on the front of those doors, but I don't have the footage from that for some reason. But yeah, I just decided to use my cup gun for this coat because this was kind of like an intermediate coat, and I just wanted to get a little bit more material on it. I just thinned the gallery by about 10%, and I used a 1.8 in my spray gun. And then I took the masking off the top, and I sprayed the top on the case. And the reason I do this is because it's hard to spray that many angles in one go with the airless. So I like to break it up into the top and the sides. And, that keeps any dry spray from getting on the top, and it also just makes sure that you get a better finished product. So this was just a little door insert that went inside the piece, and basically, got a little spit there. I mean, a clog, but yeah, this is just something that sits inside the piece and just holds stuff or whatever. I didn't use a primer; I just used Gallery, and I sprayed directly over it. You can do that with Gallery; it's a self-sealing product. And yeah, I had a little bit of stuff that I had to fix in this coat too, so I sanded it back, and this was the final coat I think for the doors. So I had to play with the doors to figure out which one went where. It was kind of a weird situation, but eventually got them all back on, and they're getting new hardware, so I'm not worried about that. And yeah, if you want to see more painting content and more furniture flipping and restoration, then please subscribe, and thanks for watching.